betrayal. She was my world, my everything. But one night, I found her in another man's arms. The shock turned to rage, and my love morphed into a thirst for vengeance. I watched, seething, as they shared secret kisses and whispered lies. The moment I confronted them, the facade shattered. Now, every glance, every touch, burns like acid. The world must know the pain of a broken heart. This is my story, and their reckoning has just begun. What's worse than having diarrhea so bad you can barely get out of bed? Not being able to find the TV remote when you're in that state. But even worse, having diarrhea so bad you can barely move, no TV remote, and your wife leaves it on some crazy morning talk show. I lay in bed, thinking about whether it was worth the effort to change the channel to SportsCenter. The show's host praised an author with a new book. They did the hug and kiss routine, which always made me think of boxers shaking hands before a match. The author then started talking about her book. 16 days after my youngest son's 3rd birthday, I left our Brooklyn home with one suitcase. I was leaving my family, my 2 sons, aged 5 and 3, and my husband, my partner for 20 years. I had won a grant to live in Japan for 6 months to interview survivors of the atomic bomb. My husband encouraged me to apply and told me to go. "How exciting for you," the TV host said. "You would think," the author replied, "but while in Japan, I'd get calls from my husband saying the kids were sick, throwing up, and asking if pillows were washable. I didn't like it. It was very unpleasant. But I found I liked being on my own, just being myself, not just someone's wife or mother. I had feared motherhood would completely take over my life, and now I saw it was true. That research trip turned into a journey of self-discovery and led me to end my 20-year marriage." "Wow, that was so brave of you to act on your true feelings," the host said. "Everyone has their own choices, but my choice works for me," continued the author. "I think it's not selfish for women to want their own priorities. They should be able to do their jobs. I've had many women thank me for sharing my story. They may not have the same story, but they've struggled." The host nodded like a bauble doll. "Women often feel pressured to get married and have children because that's what they're supposed to do. At least you had the courage to leave instead of being unhappy and dragging your family into it." If the diarrhea hadn't already made me nauseous, this TV chat would have. "When the kids came to visit me, it was a disaster," the author went on. "I didn't know what to do with their energy. Even finding them food and bathrooms was hard. After 4 months alone, I didn't want to be a full-time mom anymore." The host took her hand. "That must have been a hard decision." The camera zoomed in on the author. "Society thinks a male caregiver is a saint, but a female caregiver is just another mother. We don't question it. I believe I'm a better mother now because I don't stay all the time." "Our audience has some questions," the host said as a young woman with a mic stood up. "I love your book," she said. "I have 2 children, ages 4 and 7. I've been offered a medical residency in another state, meaning I'd be away for a year. What should I do?" The author replied, "I can't decide for you, but why not go for it? See it as a win-win. You get a year to be yourself and decide if you want the full family life. If yes, you go back. If no, you're further in your career without feeling held back." "Yes," the host cut in. "You can always go back. What's your husband going to do? Turn you down? A divorced dad with kids isn't exactly a magnet for new partners, but you'll be a young, successful, single professional with many prospects." I couldn't take it anymore. I found the strength to get out of bed and change the channel to SportsCenter. Later, I was doing dishes with my wife Anita after dinner. Our son AJ was doing his schoolwork in the living room. I jokingly complained to Anita about leaving me without the TV remote earlier in the week. I told her about the talk show I had to endure. "Oh, she's my favorite author," Anita said, surprising me. "I really enjoy her books. She is so brave and bold." "Anita, please tell me you didn't pay money for that nonsense." "It's not nonsense, Darren," Anita replied. "I first borrowed her book from the library and loved it so much that I went to her book signing and bought a copy to get it signed. I used the gift card your mother got me for Christmas." "Geez, Anita," I said, "wanting to meet an author because you like their work. It felt weird wanting to meet a duck just because you like Pat." Anita laughed. Her laugh was high and musical, and I loved it. I dried the last dish and then spoke to her. All right, Anita, for the clueless members of the class, can you explain why you think a mother leaving her 2 young kids and a 20-year marriage is fearless? Darren, you need to read the book to understand, Anita said. She left to become a better mother. Now, when she spends time with her kids, she ignores phone calls and texts for those hours. She's fully there for them. Wow, Anita, I said with mock praise. She sounds like the perfect mother. It's not the same, Darren, Anita argued. I liked the part where she travels the world and meets different people. That dream hit me hard as I looked at the living room where our son, AJ, was playing. Anita and I had been high school sweethearts. We got married after I found out she was pregnant during my short break from the Navy. Our son was a blessing, so we saved money to travel the world and show him its wonders. But when AJ turned 4, he was diagnosed with cancer. Our life quickly became a blur of tests and treatments. The insurance from my small job was not enough. We sold everything of value and borrowed money to afford the best care. I even got extra jobs. The worst was cleaning grease traps on weekends. The smell stuck to me no matter how much I scrubbed. But it got us used cooking oil, which I turned into biodiesel to save on fuel for our old rusty Volkswagen Jetta. We had sold Anita's car and my truck to pay for AJ's treatment. AJ beat cancer, but then it came back, which was devastating. And then Anita's parents passed away. As an only child, she had to bear all that on her own. We moved into my mother's house, and it was more treatments and more bills. Finally, we got a miracle. AJ beat the cancer again. Now he was 10, a typical preteen boy. I took on the role of Mr. Mom. I was the scoutmaster, the school dad, and even coached his sports teams. I didn't want to miss any moment with my son. I wasn't athletic, but I learned you don't need to be good at sports to be a great coach. When my mom moved to Florida, Anita started working, and we began to live more normally. We were slowly paying off our debts and even saving a bit. I hugged Anita and kissed her neck. We've been through a lot, but we need to be patient. We'll get there. Let's pay off the debt before planning our trip. Anita smiled sadly. I know, Darren, it's just hard. I don't want us to end up like my parents, never traveling, only planning, with a box of brochures they never used. They lived off other people's postcards. We had this talk many times. I tried to make her smile. Anita, most people travel to far places to see things they ignore at home. Usually that made her laugh, but not this time. You know I want to see the world, but we'll do it as a family, I said seriously. Okay, Darren, Anita replied, kissing me. A well-dressed older woman sat at our kitchen table and dropped a bombshell. She was the wife of Wesley Stanford, one of the partners at the law firm where Anita worked. The firm had grown fast, adding more staff and services like home inspections and moving services. Anita had gone from part-time temp to full-time assistant in 2 years. 6 months ago, Anita excitedly announced she'd be helping at a seminar with her boss Wesley in the state capital. She traveled often for work, helping her boss at conferences. Wesley was in high demand for his talks on new mortgage strategies. Anita said these trips were great for the firm. But that's not all that had been happening. In front of me were hotel registration sheets. They were filled out in Anita's neat handwriting. They said, Mr. and Mrs. Wesley Stanford. There must be some explanation, I said to the woman. Maybe they were suites with multiple rooms. She sighed. I'm sorry to tell you this, but these were single rooms with 1 bed. Wesley is too cheap to pay for something nice because he doesn't want to explain the extra cost to the firm. As you can tell, Wesley even went cheap on the hotels. These barely have a good rating. I was losing hope. Are you sure it was Anita? I asked. She took a deep breath before answering. Darren, you seem like a good man with a lovely family. I just thought you should know what your wife has been doing at these seminars with Wesley. I looked at the papers again as she continued. I've already been through this with Wesley when he turned 40. Back then, it was hair plugs, a flashy sports car, and cheating with the secretary. When I caught him, he agreed to a tough post-nuptial agreement. It means he gets almost nothing if he cheats again. I am 63 years old and don't plan to go through that again or stay with his lies. She stopped and looked at me. Darren, I only have clear proof of Wesley with your wife on these last 4 trips. There are photos, too. Nothing too bad, just some kissing and touching. But if you want to save your relationship, I wouldn't look at them. She stood up, grabbing her purse. I am serving Wesley divorce papers the minute he gets home today from this trip. It's up to you if you want to fix or end your marriage. She put her hand on my shoulder. I wish you the best of luck with your decision. I walked her to the door, then fell back into a chair at the kitchen table. I was still sitting there hours later when Anita walked into the house, rolling her luggage and carrying a laptop. Thank God I was at my brother's for the weekend. My brother has twins who are the same age as AJ. AJ thought spending time at his cousin's house playing video games and watching DVDs was just perfect. Hi, Anita said, breezing in and giving me a quick kiss. What are you doing sitting at the table? I ignored her question and asked in a dull voice, how was your trip? Same old, Anita said, opening the refrigerator. Interest rates this, deductions that. How about the hotel? How was the room? About the same. Anita sat across from me with a soda in her hand. Nothing special, why do you ask? Must have been something special in the room. What kind of beds? I inquired. Anita made a face. Well, I don't remember. Maybe a couple of double beds, I guess. What kind of question is that? It must have been crowded on one bed for you and Wesley. Anita looked shocked. Or did you only sleep together in one bed and then sleep separately after you were done? Darren, his name is Wesley, and what are you talking about? Anita said, a look flashing through her eyes. Nothing is going on. This was a seminar, for God's sake. I go on them about once a month now. You know that. You agreed to it. Stop being silly. How long have you been cheating with Wes? I asked, pushing the hotel forms across the table to Anita. Or should I call you Mrs. Wesley Stanford? Anita picked up the hotel papers, looking through them one at a time. She then pulled her cell phone from her purse and pressed a speed dial button. Turning away from me, she spoke into the phone. Wesley? Yes, it's me. It's about Darren. He knows. A pause. What? She did what? Served you right there? Another pause. Okay, then I guess we have to do it now. I'll be waiting for you. Anita closed her phone, then faced me. Darren, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. I wanted more time to prepare you for this. I just didn't have my plan fully worked out yet. Looks like I'll have to go with what I've got now. I was still in shock as Anita grabbed her suitcase. It's not your fault, Darren. I love you, but I'm just not in love with you anymore. I need to get away and see new places. You'll see, it will be better this way. I can spend a lot more time with AJ as a part-time mom than I can now. I was surprised I could speak. Anita, you can excuse it any way you want. You're just leaving your son and family for a man old enough to be AJ's grandfather. Does his money make Wesley that good to be with? I could see I touched a nerve as Anita flinched. Don't go there, Darren. It's not about that. It never took away time I spent with you or AJ. I only slept with Wesley a couple of times at the last few seminars, and only then because it just seemed like the thing to do, for all the places he was taking me. Anita, are you telling me you cheated for travel rewards? Anita waved her hand at me before answering. I don't want to talk about that, Darren. Just know that I will be there for you and AJ whenever I can. You intend to be a part-time wife too? Anita bit her lip and looked at her watch before answering. Darren, we can still be friends. We've been together for almost 12 years. That should count for something. Judas was one of Jesus' first and longest apostles. Did that matter in the betrayal? Just then, Anita's cell phone chimed, signaling a text message. She looked down, then grabbed the handle of her luggage, rolling it to the door. I saw the white Lexus pull up to the curb as Anita opened the front door. She turned to me. Darren, it's time for me to go. This is something I need to do. We'll always have our memories. I'll send you postcards. I called my brother and explained what was going on. He instantly agreed to keep AJ for the day. I spent the rest of the weekend in a daze. I called in sick on Monday to make plans. I was trying to figure out what to do. Cancel credit cards, get money out of the bank, contact a divorce lawyer. If so, who do I hire? A million decisions, but I was stuck in place. My whole world was upside down. I felt off balance. The front doorbell interrupted my thoughts. I almost welcomed the break from my thoughts. To my surprise, when I looked through the peephole, I saw my wife's boss, Wesley, on the porch with 2 other men. Jesus Christ, I muttered, just when I thought things couldn't get worse. Hold on a second, I shouted through the door. I needed a moment to pull myself together. Why was this jerk on my porch? I wanted to be ready. After a few moments, I was somewhat organized. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. There stood Wesley, flanked by two big guys, and a large van with a liftgate was parked at the curb. I could see a white Lexus in the driveway. Wesley looked every bit the successful lawyer in his suit, his salt and pepper hair perfectly in place. His two companions looked like they lived in a gym. Both were huge with bulging muscles. One wore a t-shirt from some weightlifting place. "Darren," Wesley began, "I've come to collect your wife's personal belongings from the house." He held up some papers in one hand and tried to hand me a folder with the other. I didn't take the documents, which annoyed Wesley. "Look, Darren, let's try to make this easy. I brought movers from the office. Anita has given us a detailed list, so we'll be quick." Wesley motioned to the two muscle men who started to move forward. I raised my hand to stop them and spoke to Wesley. "Listen, Wes," I said, knowing he hated being called that. "This is my house. I'm not letting you or your pals in to take anything." Wesley looked irritated and pulled out a paper from the folder, showing an official-looking form with a seal at the bottom. "This is a notarized document from Anita that allows us to remove her things. Now please step aside so my movers can work." "Wes, your name is not on the house deed. In this state, a man's home is still his castle. I'm asking you to leave before I call the police." Wesley just smirked. "Darren, I'm an officer of the court. Move or I'll have you arrested." I stood my ground. "Wes, you're just a real estate lawyer. Unless I see a Metro cop with a warrant, you and your buddies can leave. I'm not letting you in. I'm asking you to go one more time." The bigger guy, a bald-headed giant, spoke up. "Look, pal, just get out of the way. I don't have time for this nonsense. Move before I make you regret it." I tried to look calm as I turned to Wesley. "You better get your muscleheads out of here. They seem to be getting cranky." Baldy looked angry and shoved me back into the house. I stumbled against the wall. As I regained my balance, Baldy was in my face with Wesley and the other man right behind him. Mustering more courage than I felt, I shouted, "All of you get out of my house!" Baldy just chuckled. "I'm done with your crap, pal." He grabbed my throat with a hand as big as a tree trunk. "I'm just going to make sure you stay quiet until we're done." He turned to his buddy. "Looks like a light workout." I didn't want to pass out, but Baldy was so much bigger than me. I could only slap at his arm. Then, in a surprising move, I pulled a gun from my waistband and placed it against Baldy's head. I fired 3 times. Have you ever fired a gun in a small room? It's so loud it sounds like a bomb. My ears rang from the noise. Several things happened at once. Baldy let go of me and fell to the ground, screaming and holding his head. His companion backed up with his hands raised, shouting, "Don't shoot, man, don't shoot!" And Wesley? He ran out the door so fast I didn't see him leave. I just saw his Lexus speed away. Baldy was still on the ground, yelling and holding his head. An awful smell filled the air. I shouted at the other guy, "Get on the ground, face first, hands behind your head." He obeyed, which surprised me since I only knew that from watching cop shows. The echoes faded, and Baldy's screams turned into moans. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my cell phone, and turned the volume up. A tiny voice came from the phone. "Sir, are you there? Sir, are you still on the line?" It was the 911 operator I called before opening the door. "Squad cars are on the way. Sir, are you there? Please answer me." Hearing the voice, Baldy's buddy on the ground yelled, "Send help! This guy is crazy! He's got a gun, man! He's nuts! He is going to kill us all." Just then, my son AJ appeared at the top of the steps. "Dad, what the heck happened?" His eyes were wide, taking in the scene of his dad holding a gun on 2 men. "AJ, go outside and wait for the police," I ordered sharply. AJ seemed frozen in place. "Move now," I snapped to get him moving. He carefully walked down the stairs, avoiding the video camera I had set up. He passed by the 2 weightlifters and hurried out the door. As you might guess, it was tense when the police showed up. The injured man was taken to the hospital, while the others, including me, were handcuffed and placed in different squad cars until things could be sorted out. I sat in the squad car for a bit before a smiling policewoman came to take off my handcuffs. Her partner held up a bag with my gun in it. They both laughed. "You shot one guy and held down another with a starter pistol full of blanks," she said, chuckling. I shrugged. My wife, Anita, never allowed real guns in the house once AJ was born. I'm a volunteer coach for my kids' track team. Had to use what was available. Now that the drama was over, my adrenaline rush was gone. I had to focus, not to shake like a leaf. When can I get that starter pistol back? I asked. Our team has a track meet on Saturday. They couldn't stop laughing. Man, you have some nerve. That guy could have crushed you. But after that blown-out eardrum, his one ear is only good for hanging glasses. What happened to their boss, Wesley? I asked. Mr. Big Shot? The older cop said with sarcasm. He went straight to the police station. He's telling a very different story than what our 911 operator heard. Wesley tried to say I forced everyone into the house at gunpoint and tried to shoot them all. Anita backed him up, saying I was a jealous, crazy husband. The detectives let Wesley and Anita talk for a while. They even got Wesley to sign a statement. I wish I was there when they played back the 911 recordings. He hadn't even seen the video yet. As they say, the camera doesn't lie, but I was keeping that to myself for now. Wesley stopped talking after hearing the 911 recording. Anita rushed off to get lawyers and bail money. As for me, I filed a temporary restraining order, TRO, against Wesley and Anita that same day with the help of the Metro PD. The TRO was only for 5 days until the hearing, but it gave me a bit of peace. So imagine my surprise when I saw Wesley's car in my driveway 2 days later. I didn't know what to expect. Seeing Anita sitting at the kitchen table drinking wine was not one of my top guesses. "What are you doing here, Anita?" I asked. "It's still my house too," she said, motioning for me to sit down. I stayed standing. "You shouldn't be here, Anita. Didn't you get the TRO?" She just waved her hand. "Oh, don't be so stubborn. If the judge's kid wasn't on AJ's track team, you never would have gotten that silly restraining order." "Anita, you could make that argument at the hearing on Thursday. The judge felt you and Wesley were a threat to my safety, so please leave." "His name is Wesley Darren. Wesley," she said. "Did you really have to get him arrested? That was spiteful. Do you know what kind of people are in jail? It was a real ordeal for Wesley. He was there overnight." If this wasn't so serious, I would have laughed. "Gee, Anita, I'm truly sorry. Did he not make friends with the other inmates? Did he forget to keep his back to the wall? Or did he drop the soap in the shower? This is not funny, Darren. Wesley could be disbarred." Anita took a drink and calmed herself. "Listen, Darren, this has gone way too far. You think you hurt me by emptying the bank accounts and canceling the credit cards? Turning off my cell phone was petty. Any judge will make you give it all back or make you sell the house so I can get my fair share." Anita leaned forward. "Let's end this now. Wesley will pay for the divorce and handle the paperwork. No other lawyers involved. You can keep the house. I'll take the savings and half your 401k. Let's file under irreconcilable differences. You can have primary care of AJ. We'll share joint custody and no child support. I just get a little alimony." I checked my watch before speaking. "Fair share?" "Right, Anita. I hope you don't think I'm that stupid. For starters, alimony is like feeding a dead horse. It's not happening. You make a good salary. And remember that prepaid college plan when AJ was born? I paid it off in full." "Darren," Anita said angrily, "you had no right. Half of that money was mine. I had travel plans." "Your name is on the contract," I said, leaning back. "I took the upgrade package, adding health insurance, books, and all fees. After all, he's your son too." Anita took another drink before speaking. "Well, Darren, let's see what a judge has to say about that." I tried to hide my smile. Courts care about what's best for the child. "Anita, what do you think a judge will think is better for our son? Jazz education on one side or you flying first class with your new lover on the other?" Anita looked puzzled and waved her hand around the room. "So, are you going to sell your childhood home or give up your 401k? It doesn't matter to me. I've been with you for 12 years and I'm not leaving empty-handed." I took a deep breath before replying. "Empty-handed? Right. Anita, I can't stop you from leaving to chase your travel dreams, but you won't be doing it on my money. Too bad you think AIG's welfare stops your plans. You can walk away, run away, or even hop away because my 401k is already gone. I used it to repay some of the money my mom lent us for AJ's medical bills, and you're not talking about the debt we owe." Darren, if you want the house, you should take on the debt. If I want the house. Anita, you know this house isn't really ours, right? Anita's eyes narrowed before she answered. What are you trying to say, Darren? Your mom gave us money for AJ's bills and let us live in this house when she moved to Florida. That makes it joint property. I got up from the chair, walked over to a drawer, and took out some papers. I placed them on the table. The money, right? Anita, my mom didn't have any rich lover like you. She didn't have that kind of money. Mom took out a second mortgage on the house so we could pay for AJ's medical bills. This house, I tapped on the table, is still in my mom's name. We've only been paying the loan cost each month. Mom plans to leave us the house when she passes, but she's in good health and plans to change her will soon. So, Anita, you can enjoy those flights, but do it with your lover's money. Anita finished her wine. Darren, what's come over you? I know you're hurt, but this is for the best. Why are you trying to punish me? You've never been mean like this. We have been together for so long and been through so much. You're ruining my plans. This isn't like you. It doesn't have to be this way. The doorbell rang, cutting her off. I got up to answer it and returned with 2 police officers. They were the same ones who had been here a few days earlier. I had called the number on the restraining order papers when I saw Wesley's car in the driveway. Anita was shocked when the officers put handcuffs on her for breaking the restraining order. Darren, Anita said in a panicky voice as they read her rights, are you really going to let the mother of your child, your wife, be arrested? It was hard to see the woman I loved being taken away, but I had no choice. This was her doing. Oh my God, the mother of my son, my so-called wife. Look at it this way, Anita. You wanted to be a part-time wife and mother. Now is the part where you're not my wife or AJ's mom. So yes, you're getting arrested. And I won't give you a penny to destroy my marriage and travel the world. Now leave and never show your face here again. The hardest part was explaining to AJ that his mother and I wouldn't be together anymore. After everything AJ had been through, it was tough for him to understand. I tried to explain that our family was not ending, just changing, but it didn't seem to help. Thank God for my brother and his family. They had always been there for me, and this time was no different. While I went through the mess of divorce, they took AJ on outings with their kids, keeping him busy. This gave me time to adjust and heal. Several weeks went by. The restraining order hearing was interesting. Anita tried to spin the story, but her admitted affair with Wesley, along with the police reports, led the judge to extend the order for 60 more days to let things cool off. Neither of us had filed for divorce yet. I hadn't seen Anita for 3 weeks until someone from her office called for a meeting. I found myself sitting in a diner across the table from an older man. His business card said he was the senior partner at Anita's law firm. Can I call you Darren? He began as I nodded. I wish to see if we can resolve the recent problems. The firm isn't happy with one of our partners because of your situation. It's affecting our work, not to mention the resources we've had to use for this issue. Yes, I am very sad about my family and the end of a 10-year marriage. It was heartless of me not to think about how it affects your firm, I said dryly. The man didn't react, but tried a different approach. I'm sorry, Darren. I didn't mean to sound uncaring. I understand your situation. I've been married for 42 years, and I can imagine what you're going through. He paused for a moment as the waitress put our coffee on the table, then continued talking. But I have to think about my employees. Wesley made a lot of money for us, so even if you don't like it, his disbarment and conviction would hurt many innocent employees. They didn't have anything to do with what happened. I started to speak, but he raised his hand to stop me. Wait, Darren, let me be clear. I know you want revenge on Wesley for what he did to your marriage. I understand that, but isn't it enough to know that Wesley's wife is going to take a lot of money from him in their divorce? I don't mean to be rude, but marriages end all the time. Life goes on. I took a sip of my coffee before responding. Whenever someone says they are laying all their cards on the table, I always get suspicious. While it's true that marriages end every day, it's also true that lawyers get disbarred every day. Lawyers go to jail too. I saw a small frown on his face. And you, Darren, have made it harder to keep Wesley out of jail with your little video stunt. I laughed to myself. I had shared the video of the fight with Wesley and his friends on the internet and sent it to local TV stations. It must have been a slow news week because the 15-second clip was the funny ending on almost all the local news shows. Wesley dropping papers and running away after the gunshots looked like a cartoon. Some stations even added funny sound effects and music to make it more hilarious. A national cable show highlighted it as the stupid criminal tricks segment of the day. Darren, you should know that the assistant state attorney wasn't happy that you kept that information a secret. I poured more sugar into my coffee. If I read between the lines, you mean it messed up the deal they had to reduce Wesley's charges to something minor like a small fine with no jail time. About the same as a parking ticket. Am I right? He kept a straight face, but I knew I was right. Look, I may not have gone to college or law school, but I have friends in low places. I know how things work. Every profession has its own little club. This is a small town. I figured Wesley would call in some favors to get a light sentence. That video was my insurance to make sure Wesley is treated like any other criminal. He sighed. Well, Darren, it seems you have some leverage, but we're here to see what we can do to fix things for everyone. Speaking of that, what happened to Wesley's white Lexus? It was a leased company car. The firm is responsible, but in the end, Wesley will have to pay if he lets someone else drive it. I tried not to smile. You might want to check the tow yards or chop shops. I remember seeing a white Lexus in my driveway after my wife Anita was arrested, but the car was vandalized. Later, some local kids agreed to tow it away. I can't remember their names or anything. He sighed deeply. Darren, that wasn't smart. That sort of action makes it harder for us to help you. With that, he took out a pen and wrote a number on a napkin, then slid it across the table to me. I didn't look at it, but wrote my own number on another napkin and put it in front of him. I saw his eyes widen. We are not a big firm, Darren. This number is too high. I couldn't resist. I'm not joking, and don't call me Shirley. He either hadn't seen the movie Airplane, or chose to ignore the joke because he said, Darren, I don't want to give legal advice, but you know we don't have alienation of affection laws in this state. The firm doesn't have any rules against what two consenting adults do in their own time. There is no reason for such a large amount. I leaned back in my chair before speaking. This isn't about my soon-to-be ex-wife, Anita, and whether she consented or not. I plan to sue your firm in civil court for breaking into my house and trying to hurt me. Darren, the firm didn't know about Wesley's actions that day. We didn't approve of his behavior or that of the people he hired. It was a private matter between him and your wife. I adjusted my seat, then replied, let's see if I got this right. A senior member of your firm, Wesley, shows up with 2 employees in a van owned by your firm. Wesley was holding papers notarized by an employee of your firm during business hours. He acted as a supervisor to the 2 employees. Yet Wesley didn't stop the attack by his 2 employees. Wesley broke into my house and refused to leave. Do I have it right? He called the waitress for a coffee refill. Darren, I'm not saying Wesley didn't overreact, but civil court cases can take years. I shrugged. I'm not going anywhere. Several law offices have shown interest in taking my case on a contingency basis. I named a well-known firm, and he gasped before I continued. You need to think about how you and the firm will handle the constant legal problems. There will be many depositions, endless court proceedings, and lots of courtroom time. This will hurt your profits. It's like a penalty you have to pay for letting this happen. Darren, are you looking for revenge? Let me give you some advice from an old man. Seeking revenge won't make you feel better. I'm not looking for revenge, I just want a little justice. Some people say there's no justice in the world or in court, but in this country, justice often means getting a big check. The bigger the check, the more justice you get, it seems. The man picked up the napkin with the amount I had written and glanced at his fancy Rolex watch. Darren, I'll discuss your suggestion with my colleagues at the firm. I stood up, pulled out some cash, and threw it on the table. That number on the napkin is not a suggestion, and it's not up for negotiation. You may have the watch, but I have the time. I thought I was in for a long legal fight. On Monday morning, a court server showed up with a thick folder. It had divorce papers inside, along with a big check for the amount I had written on the napkin at the restaurant. There was also a long contract attached. I spent the afternoon with a lawyer friend. The contract said the firm admitted no guilt, but required me not to interfere with any other legal matters involving its senior partners. The divorce allowed Anita to leave with only her personal things. She wouldn't get any of our money or assets, but she would take half of our debt. We would share custody of AJ, with me being the main caregiver. There would be no alimony or child support from either side. I was advised to sign the papers quickly. The divorce deal was the best I could hope for. The check would pay off debts and give AJ and me some spending money. I didn't care what happened to Wesley. That was up to the assistant state's attorney. All I could do was make noise about it. If someone takes your wife, they deserve her. I remembered an old saying from Groucho Marx, if a man takes your wife, there's no better revenge than to let him keep her. I hoped that was true. Maybe karma would work in my favor. About a year had passed since the divorce was final. All visits with AJ happened through my brother. Anita would pick up and drop off AJ at his place. This was my choice. I still loved Anita, and seeing her would break my heart. I hoped that time and distance would eventually ease the pain. My brother and sister-in-law tried to set me up on dates with some nurses at the hospital, but I wasn't ready. I threw myself into working out to fight off depression. I found swimming relaxing. It helped tire me out so I could sleep at night. Our local gym had a nice indoor pool, and I would spend hours there swimming laps, losing myself in the water. But things weren't perfect. AJ was at the age where kids start to rebel. He also resented his mother. This was a recipe for problems. It didn't help that Anita kept sending postcards of her travels. They never seemed to go beyond the tri-state area. Her trips made her miss scheduled visits with AJ, which only increased his anger toward her. I warned Anita through my brother that if this continued, I would ask the court for full custody of AJ. As much as AJ was angry at his mother for what she'd done to our family, her not showing up for visits hurt him even more. After one missed visit, I got off the phone with my brother and called AJ into the room. AJ, come in here, please. AJ appeared. Yes, Dad? I motioned for him to sit down. I just talked to your uncle. He said your mom was upset about how you acted during your visit. Want to tell me what happened? Dad, I hate going over there when Wes is around. That guy is a fool. AJ, I'm not asking you to be friends with him. Just be civil and don't do anything rash. You can't even say his name. He's still a fool, Dad. I tried to speak, but AJ kept going. Dad, he said, working at the hospital as a pediatric nurse isn't manly. He keeps making dumb comments about girly jobs. I thought college made you smart, but he's so dumb. I found this amusing. My brother had a Purple Heart from the Gulf War and a Bronze Star. He fought off an attack when his medevac chopper went down and kept his wounded comrades alive until help arrived. It was hard to keep a straight face. AJ, I know you think he's an idiot, but this is a lesson. College makes you educated, not smart. Only a fool talks like that. We both know your uncle is more manly than any football player. AJ tried to respond, but I held up my hand. AJ, did you tell your mom you would put her in a bad nursing home in Mexico when she got old? AJ mumbled something. Speak up, son. Yeah, Dad, but their computer is so old and slow. It's like you need a shovel to start it. They don't even have a flat-screen monitor. I try to use my laptop, but their Wi-Fi is terrible. The download speed is so slow we might as well be going backward in time. I let AJ talk for a while. When we started this visiting thing, I told AJ I'd rather he not tell his mom anything about my personal life. I also told him I didn't want to hear anything about Anita's life. But like most kids, he didn't listen. Between him and my brother, who kept telling me stuff Anita said when he picked AJ up, I knew way more than I wanted to about my ex-wife's problems. For example, Anita kept going on about how Wesley's wife had made things really hard with their post-nup agreement. Wesley lost his house and a big part of his business in the divorce. Wesley's wife sold her part of the business to some business investors, who made changes that his company didn't like. The other business partners were upset and made Wesley pay extra out of his share of the profits. This messed up Wesley's lifestyle. Anita had even threatened to accuse Wesley of harassment if he didn't give her a big diamond ring. Anita wanted a grand wedding. Unlike ours, which was a small family event, Wesley wanted a simple week in Vegas with a wedding chapel because of money issues. By now, AJ had stopped talking. He was just whining that he didn't want to be in his mom's wedding because it was on the same day as his swimming competition. Can I skip this one and go to Mom's next wedding? He asked. I had to cover my mouth to stop myself from laughing. This conversation was going to be long. You know how one thing can lead to another, like how a butterfly flapping its wings can cause a hurricane. My story started with a simple question from my manager. "Darren, do you have a valid passport?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Anita, AJ, and I got one before he got sick. Then I'm well." I trailed off. My manager cut me some slack because he knew about my difficult marriage. He said, "We just got an urgent call from the headquarters. There was a car accident that hurt our team in South Florida. You need to go there on Friday to work on an engine job for a cruise ship." He smiled. "Wouldn't that be nice? A change from this cold weather?" "Wow, thanks." "But why me?" I asked, surprised. Our company had been bought by a large multinational organization a few years back. I didn't understand why they would want a small machine shop in our small town, but I was happy for the better health benefits. My manager leaned back and said, "You were in the Navy, right?" "I served one tour and never left the base after training. I worked on jet engines in Maryland." "So what?" my manager replied. "That's more than most. Plus, you know about biofuels, and this job involves fuel additives and that kind of stuff." "I just make biodiesel in my garage," I said. "I'm not a professional." "Darren, remember that professionals built the Titanic. Amateurs built the Ark. You are the best at programming and jet engines we have. That makes you very valuable." "I'm serious," I pleaded. "I can't leave my son right now." "Darren, I know your situation. I've tried to help, but I really need you for this. Consider it a personal favor." I nodded, looking down at the binder full of information I had to learn. Either be good, or get gone, I thought. I learned that modern cruise ships don't use diesel engines much anymore. Instead, some have jet turbines that make electricity, which powers special pods that hang below the ship like outboard motors. These pods can turn 360 degrees, making the ship very easy to maneuver. These electric jet turbines are cleaner than diesel engines, though the fuel is more expensive. Our company was testing biofuels made from camelina oil and algae to see if they could work in these turbines. A lot of money was at stake, and our company had a big interest in both the biofuels and the turbines. So there I was, sitting next to a grumpy senior engineer from Scotland named Seamus Isaac. I'd made the mistake of calling him English, which he found very offensive. "Call me Mac, you fool," he said as we sat on the plane headed to a port I had to look up on Google Earth. "If you have anything to say, keep it to yourself," he warned. "We are boarding a ship from the Royal Ocean Line called the Royal Viking." "I hope I don't get seasick," I muttered. Mac rolled his eyes. "This isn't a small boat, you yank. It's over 100,000 tons and has 17 decks. There's no deck 13, though. If it pulled up next to the Statue of Liberty, we'd be face to face with her. This huge ship has everything you can think of. Inside, there's an ice skating rink, a hospital, a TV studio, nightclubs, a conference center, a movie theater, shopping areas, bars, and even a Ferris wheel for the kids on the top deck. They also have their own swimming pool. The lifeboats alone are over 10 meters long, which is about 30 feet. They can hold 150 people with supplies for a week." "Mac, if this trip is such a big deal, why not wait until your team recovers from the car crash?" I asked. "Couple of reasons," he replied. "Our company isn't the only one trying to do this, and we're already behind. We need to show that our product works as soon as possible. Ship owners and captains are cautious. They don't trust new ideas that might leave them stranded. Sometimes I think they'd still want sails on their ships. And it's hard to get spots on a good ship. Good ships fill up fast. Any cabins they give to people like us is lost money. We planned this trip long ago because we knew cabins would be available due to the Royal Viking's repositioning and fear of pirates." "Pirates? You mean, like in the movies?" Mac rolled his eyes. "Have you looked at your plane ticket, you idiot? The port we are going to is near the African coast. I'm talking about Somali pirates. Haven't you seen the news? The kind of pirates your Navy SEALs dealt with?" Mac stopped a flight attendant to ask for a drink before continuing. "I'm from Special Boat Service myself. Still, we all raised a glass to the SEALs for that operation." "Mac, I didn't sign up to deal with pirates. I'm worried." "Darren, don't worry. Our ship will be far from the coast. Those pirate boats won't reach us. Besides, you're a young single guy. There'll be plenty to keep your mind off any pirates." "Mac, I'm not a cowboy. I've never even been on a horse." "Just the same," Mac said. "Did you bring what I told you?" Sure, Mac. What's all the candy and aquavit for? On a ship, these things are like currency. Booze, candy, and phone cards to call home are valuable. Our satellite division handles the data so we can hand out phone cards. The Royal Vikings officers are Norwegian, and the aquavit gets us goodwill with the captain, staff captain, and chief engineer. If it was a Greek ship, we'd bring ouzo. On a British ship, the officers prefer scotch or whiskey. You're kidding me, right? No, I'm not. We're asking these guys to do a lot of extra work without extra pay, so any little treats help. The workers from the Balkans love Tootsie Rolls, Eastern Europeans go crazy for bubble gum, and Filipino guys crave milk chocolate. Got it. Whole different world, Mac. Whole different world, I said. With over 100 nationalities on the Royal Viking, you got that right? Mac pulled out his laptop. Let's go over our plan. Mac knew his stuff. He was greeted warmly by his old friend, the ship's captain, a big blonde guy named Sven. The bottles of aquavit smoothed my introductions while the crew was happy to help as we handed out phone cards. It felt like Halloween, passing out pockets of candy, but I followed Mac's lead. Our project was going well. After the first day, I made computer adjustments to the turbines to use our biofuels for the best results. The chief engineer was still nervous, preferring their usual jet fuel. He kept delaying running fully on our alternate fuels, even after short trials worked fine. Mac was trying to convince the chief engineer for a full test when I turned around and hit my head on a wall. The crew laughed as my forehead started bleeding slightly. The chief engineer insisted I go to the medical center. There, I was stuck filling out endless forms like any hospital. Then I heard my name. The nurse's name tag said Zoe from one of the old Soviet Union countries. Her black hair and blue eyes caught my attention, even more than her name tag. She had a beautiful smile and spoke with a mix of Eastern European and British accents. I forgot my pain immediately. Zoe asked me to follow her into the medical center. As I sat, she looked at my paperwork before speaking. So, mister, please call me Darren, I interrupted. Sure thing, Darren, Zoe said, flashing me a warm smile as she took my blood pressure and other health stats. I tried to make small talk with her. Zoe was kind and professional, but my efforts to charm her seemed to bounce off like nothing. The ship's doctor came in, another tall, blonde guy. After a quick checkup, he said I was clumsy, but in good shape with no real injuries, just a bruised ego. He shook my hand, then left. Darren, Zoe called out. Yes, I answered quickly. Let's get you some aspirin, just in case you get a headache later. No worries, Zoe, I've got a hard head. I tapped my forehead with my knuckle. Zoe looked puzzled. What does hard head mean? Never mind, Zoe, I was just trying to keep the conversation going. I hadn't dated in over 10 years and didn't know what to do. Zoe, will I see you later? Zoe gave me a half smile. Well, Darren, I'll be at the officer's bar at 8 p.m. She paused as I looked confused. Darren, that's 8 p.m. in your time. I'd like to see you there. I said goodbye to Zoe and then saw my Filipino junior engineer standing in the lobby staring at me. What? I asked. The small engineer chuckled. I have never seen Zoe smile before. We call her the Ice Queen on the ship. She is always nice, but keeps everyone at a distance. Can you share some of those charming lines you used on her? I laughed. Not all of us are from New York or L.A. There's a lot of America between the coasts. Let's get back to the engine room. That evening, the officers brought out the aquavit I had brought. The bar was filled with all sorts of accents. Nordic, German, Eastern European, Caribbean, and several others I didn't understand. I found the biggest challenges were with the UK folks. As an American, I realized we shared the same language but used different words. Torch meant flashlight, spanner meant wrench, lift was an elevator, petrol was fuel, and bonnet was a car hood. Same language, different words. I saw a Spanish crew member ask his Dutch friend if they should speak English or American. At first it didn't make sense, but now I got it. These people could drink. Mac had warned me on the plane. Look, Darren, no matter how well you think you hold your liquor, any 20-year-old Aussie girl will outdrink you. Unlike in the States, many countries don't have strict alcohol age limits. These kids were drinking while you were sneaking beers at graduation. I took Mac's advice, sticking to ginger ale after a few toasts with the aquavit. I couldn't understand why people liked that drink. It tasted awful. Mac was deep in a debate about guns with the Israeli chief of security when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Zoe, the nurse. Darren, may I sit and talk for a while with you? Sure, Zoe, I said, grabbing a chair from a nearby table. What would you like to drink? We brought some aquavit. Zoe wrinkled her nose and said, A glass of white wine, please, Darren. I brought Zoe her wine. We were alone at the table as an impromptu dart game started up, drawing in most people. Thanks, Darren, Zoe said, sipping her wine. No problem, Zoe. I searched my mind for something to say. How long have you been working on ships? This is my second contract on this ship, Zoe said. I did 2 other contracts on its sister ship. How long is a contract? Zoe smiled before answering. My contracts are between 6 and 8 months on the ship with about 6 to 8 weeks off. Do you go home then? Where is home for you? Zoe paused before answering. I usually stay a few days with friends from the crew. If not, I stay in hotels. Home is a long story. I could listen to her talk all night, but I felt this wasn't the time for that story. Do you like it? I asked, keeping the conversation going. Yes, Darren, it is not a bad life. Enough about me. Tell me about you and your life in America. I gave Zoe a brief version of my life in my small town. I showed her a picture of AJ on my phone and explained why I was on the ship. Zoe returned my phone. You and your wife must be very proud of him. Sadly, Zoe, we are not together anymore. AJ stays with me now. Zoe looked a bit shocked. Your son's mother is not with him? What kind of woman would... She stopped and apologized. Sorry, Darren. None of my business. Trying to change the subject, Zoe asked, We will be doing the Caribbean run out of Miami and Fort Lauderdale this season. It will be my first time in North America. I'm looking forward to it. Are you near those ports? No, I shook my head. But my mom lives in South Florida now. AJ and I have been meaning to visit her. Maybe we can meet up. Zoe smiled again. I would like that, Darren. Just then, the dart game ended and the table became crowded. Zoe became quieter and more reserved. It was like there were 2 Zoes, the polite professional and the friendly lady I had just talked to. Though I enjoyed my time with this international group, I felt my energy start to drop after a while. Zoe must have noticed. She finished her wine and turned to me. Darren, I have to get up early. Can you walk me to my cabin? That gave me a sudden boost of energy. I jumped up as Zoe said goodnight to our table mates. We walked through the ship and Zoe nodded to passengers as we passed. We stopped a few times to talk with other guests. These people had recently visited the sick bay. Zoe was very interested in their stories. I was impressed by how much she cared about people she barely knew. After a few days, we reached the officer area of the ship and stood outside her cabin door. Zoe looked me in the eyes. Darren, I like talking with you and want to spend more time together. But this ship, though big, is still small. I don't want to be just another fling, she said. Then she gave me a powerful kiss. As I tried to hug her, she stepped back. Darren, there's something you need to see first. Zoe pulled back her hair with one hand, revealing the left side of her face and shoulder. Her skin was discolored and rough. I looked for a moment. She turned away, letting her hair fall back and fixing her shirt to cover the scars. Childhood accident. Darren, I understand if you're uncomfortable, she said, facing me. I finally found my voice. So what, Zoe? That doesn't change the fact that you're a great person. You didn't have to show me that, but I'm glad you did, I said with a shrug. Zoe smiled and touched her finger to my lips. You're kind to say that, even if you don't mean it, she said, shaking her head as I tried to speak. Darren, think about it. If you still feel the same way, meet me for lunch on the top deck tomorrow. With that, Zoe went into her cabin. I couldn't wait until lunch to see her again. Mac was in better spirits now that our major issues were resolved, but he still couldn't convince the chief engineer to use more fuel. At noon, Mac and I met some older folks from his country who were on holiday with their wives. They chatted and shared old war stories. The elderly Scots were telling tall tales about the good old days. I was waiting for Zoe to show up, so I wandered away from the group on the top deck. Suddenly, one of the Scotsman's wives screamed, "Pirates! Pirates!" We all rushed to the railing and saw 2 small boats with armed men in ragged clothes approaching our ship. More boats were speeding toward us. The ship's security officer ran to the stairway, pulling out his radio. Code Papa, this is not a drill. All security personnel to stations. Prepare to repel boarders. We continued to watch when one of the men in the boats raised a gun and fired at us. Jesus Christ! I yelled, diving away from the railing. I hit the deck and crawled as fast as I could. Then I saw Mac jump to his feet. "Come on, lads. Don't just lie there," Mac shouted, waving his hands and pointing to the railing. "Let's show these scoundrels what happens when they mess with Scotsmen." A cheer rose from the elderly group, shaking me to my core. The Scots jumped up and grabbed bottles from the tables, racing to the railing. They started throwing bottles, jugs, and anything else they could find at the pirates. After the bottles ran out, they threw deck chairs, ignoring the gunfire coming from the boats below. I watched in disbelief as these old men picked up entire tables and threw them over the side. It wasn't just the men. The women were throwing things too. Shoes, umbrellas, anything they could find became weapons. I couldn't believe it, but it looked like their efforts were working. The small boats backed away as the barrage continued. On the deck above, I saw the ship's security setting up strange devices. Our ship sped forward. Mac, pointing at the devices, said, "Give them a blast." He had a big grin on his face as he helped me up. "One of our divisions makes these noise machines. They'll blow out eardrums with a focused sound beam." I was scared, but Mac seemed to be having fun. "Look there," he said, pointing to a larger boat in the distance. "That's their main ship. The small boats wouldn't have made it out here without it." "Can't we just outpace them?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "We have to deal with that mothership, or they'll keep coming after us," Max said, just as our ship turned and headed at full speed toward the larger boat. The old Scots were still crowded at the railing, shaking their fists and yelling curses at the pirates, daring them to come back. One elderly man pulled down his pants and mooned the pirates. Then, more followed, bearing their backsides. Soon, over 3 dozen pale, white, wrinkled behinds were visible over the railing. Even though I was really scared, that sight made me laugh. Meanwhile, our ship was rushing towards the pirates' main ship at full speed. A bunch of small boats were chasing us like angry sea dogs. Some pirates saw what our captain was doing and started shooting at us with small guns and rocket launchers. As we got closer, our captain sped up even more. The pirates' main ship tried to get away, but Captain Sven wasn't letting them. Our ship shook for a moment as we crashed into the back of the pirate ship. The crash broke off the pirate ship's propellers and most of its tail. We cheered loudly as Mac shouted, "That ship is done for! It can't move!" I felt happy for a moment, but then I saw another problem. The pirates in the small boats were now trying even harder to get on our ship since their main ship was damaged. Their only options were to get on our ship or be stuck in the middle of the ocean, which could mean a slow death. I ran to the engine room, getting thrown against the hallway walls as Captain Sven made sharp turns to try and flip the smaller boats. When I reached the engine room, I quickly told the chief engineer what I wanted to do. The big Nordic man gave fast orders to his team, then turned to me and said, "Go, Darren, let's give them pirates some Viking thunder." He slapped me on the back so hard I almost fell. I followed the young Filipino engineer who was holding a box and running ahead. He led me to an upper deck. Standing at the back of the ship, we saw at least a dozen small boats getting closer. A loud gush came out as our ship dumped hundreds of gallons of modified jet fuel into the water. The Filipino and I grabbed some flares from the box as the pirates got closer. I'm pretty sure I've done dumber things in my life than throwing lit flares onto a fuel-covered ocean, but I couldn't think of any right then. The first few flares went out or didn't do much. I knew the fuel must be floating on the surface, so I tried not to panic as a pirate boat got really close. Suddenly, I remembered it's the fumes from the fuel that burn, not the fuel itself. We were down to our last flares when, unexpectedly, a huge blast cracked through the sky. The ship's wake had stirred up the fuel enough to create fumes, which then ignited. We didn't know it, but I'd accidentally made a small fuel air bomb close to the water's surface. A fireball spread out, sucking oxygen from the air, and a mini mushroom cloud rose up. The Filipino ducked down behind the ship's railing, but I was still standing with my mouth open, staring when the blast hit me hard. The last thing I remember was being thrown several yards into the back wall before everything went black. I tried to open my eyes, but I couldn't see clearly. It felt like the worst hangover ever. My head hurt so much, my face felt stiff. It was like someone hit my body with a hammer. Even my hair hurt. "About time you woke up, you lazy," someone said in a thick Scottish accent as I turned my head. My vision cleared. Mac was sitting beside me in a chair. I was in a bed, but it wasn't my small cabin. I was in a big bed, in a huge room with paintings on the wall. I even saw a grand piano reflected in large glass doors that led to a balcony overlooking the sea. Mac saw my confusion and grinned. "Not bad, Darren? After your little Texas barbecue stunt, the passengers in the royal suite insisted you stay here to recover. They moved to another cabin." "I'm not from Texas, but I do make a mean BBQ," I said, still looking around. "Mac, this is too much. I just got lucky, that's all." Mac got up, rubbing his hands. "I'd rather be good than lucky any day, Darren. The whole ship is talking about what you did. They're saying you drank the fuel and shot flames from your backside at those pirates." I tried to smile, but my cheeks hurt. Mac got a serious look. "Darren, what you did took quick thinking and a lot of guts," he said. He paused, then smiled again. "It was almost worthy of a special boat service medal. Now don't get a big head," I said almost. I touched my face. It hurt a lot. Mac started pacing. "Never thought of ducking for cover, Darren. My instructor used to say, to be sure of hitting the target, shoot first, then call whatever you hit the target." I tried to sit up. "Mac, I thought I was a goner when that blast hit me." Mac grabbed a mirror and shoved it in my face. "You fool! You're too ugly to die." I gasped, touching my face to make sure it was really me in the reflection. My eyebrows were gone and a lot of my hair was singed. Some white cream was on my nose and lips, and the rest of my face looked like a bad sunburn. My left eye was swollen with red, purple, and yellow shades around it. Just then, Zoe came out of the bathroom. She looked professional in her medical outfit with a stethoscope around her neck. "Mac, I'll make you leave if you upset my patient." She then put a thermometer in my mouth and wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm. Mac ignored Zoe. "I have more good news, Darren. The ship used up most of its regular fuel dealing with those pirates, so the Royal Viking has been using our biofuel for almost 2 days now." He got up and clapped his hands. "It's been working really well, too. Even the stubborn Norwegian chief engineer is happy." Zoe turned, pointing at the door. "That's it, Mac. Out. Don't make me get the captain to call security." "Okay, Lassie, I'm going. Mac gave me a salute as he left. Zoe turned to me. I was surprised to see tears in her eyes, which she wiped away with her sleeve. "Darren, what am I going to do with you?" Between the ship doctor checking me over and the many visitors, Zoe kept my visit time short. She watched over me like a protective mother, even shooing the captain out when she saw I was getting tired. My favorite visitors were the passengers who had given up this large suite for me. I was surprised to see it was the elderly Scott who first dropped his pants to distract the pirates. He and his wife were quite a pair. They didn't want to hear my thanks for using their room. "Think nothing of it, Darren," the old man said with a smile. "Didn't think you'd recognize me with my pants on." His wife swatted him. "Oh, hush." She turned to me. "You've given us a great story to tell our grandchildren when we get home." "Yes," her husband added. "They'll be hanging on every word." We chatted a bit more until Zoe sent them out. I was really tired, so when Zoe closed the blinds, I fell asleep fast. I woke up with a start, not recognizing the surroundings. It was dark and hard to see. A soft but firm body was next to mine. I knew it was a woman by the smell of her perfume. Anita. My heart jumped as my eyes adjusted. Then disappointment hit me. It wasn't my ex-wife, Anita. This woman had dark hair. Anita was blonde. As my fingers touched the back of her neck, I felt rough skin. I pulled away before it hit me. My mind screamed, "Damn it, Zoe!" Zoe stiffened when I pulled my hand back. I tried to act like I was just stretching a muscle. "It's okay, Darren," Zoe said softly. "I know what I look like. That's why I kept the lights off." I rolled over quickly, but pain shot through me. It reminded me to move slower next time. I found the bedside lamp and turned it on. Zoe was on her side, looking at me. She tried to cover her scars with her hair. I took Zoe's hand and moved her hair away to see her face fully. "You are beautiful the way you are. Please don't hide any part of you from me." Zoe looked past me before she began speaking. My parents weren't important in the party, so I couldn't get surgery after the fire when I was 8. Many people in our small town were superstitious. They thought my looks were a punishment for something bad I had done or my parents had done. Most wouldn't let their kids play with me. I never got used to the names or teasing. Zoe looked up at the ceiling. "I worked hard at school, always did well, and got into university. I was going to be an anesthesiologist. My patients would be asleep, never needing to see my face. I had my first boyfriend there. I thought he looked past my scars. Then I heard him tell his friends that the only way to be with me was with a sack over my head or in the dark. Zoe took a deep breath but continued. I forgot about him and focused on my studies. I became a very good anesthesiologist, Darren. Always top of my class and in high demand at government hospitals. Then my father upset the party. They took him and my mother away. A patient warned me, so I ran from the country before the government police could find me. I ended up in different parts of Europe with no way to prove my qualifications. I couldn't practice medicine anywhere. I finished a nursing course while working nights as a cleaner. Zoe turned to face me, propping herself up on her elbow. That's my sad story, Derek. As I said, this is a small ship and I'm not what you'd call a loose woman. If you want me to leave, I will. I held Zoe's chin so she was looking directly at me. You are the most amazing woman I have ever met. I feel like I've been whining about my little problems while you've been so brave. I saw her eyes shine with amusement. And Zoe, as for wanting you to leave, I grabbed her and kissed her. Zoe smiled as she began to kiss me back. Darren, can we turn off the lights? I may be too hurt to die, Zoe, but there is no way I'm turning off the lights. Not a chance. Hear that? I said, pulling her closer. I wish I could say our night together was magical. But if you've ever tried to kiss someone with burnt lips and lots of bruises, it's not easy. It was a slow and careful night. The only magic was that we could do anything at all, let alone twice. Sadly, 4 days later, Zoe and I said goodbye. She promised to visit me when her contract ended. I was already looking for plane tickets for when the Royal Viking would be in Florida. The pirate event got a lot of airtime, but it was old news by the time I got home. My son and brother's family were a bit shocked by how I looked, though I had healed up a bit. All I could say was, you should have seen the other guy. When I returned to work, my co-workers had a small party for me, complete with a pirate-themed cake. They decorated my workspace with pirate stuff. My workbench was loaded with pirate gear, a skull and crossbones, a fake eye patch, a stuffed parrot, and a toy sword. The machinists even made me a wooden leg. For the first few days, jokes about Blackbeard and Captain Jack were non-stop. I laughed along, so I thought it was a gag when I was called into the manager's office to meet a serious woman with a slight German accent. My boss, Darren, introduced her. This is the corporate HR manager. She's here from headquarters about your move to the South Florida division. Things got strange after that. The corporate lady looked shocked. Apparently, my old friend Mac needed me down south immediately. He was ready to pay a lot to get me there as soon as possible. All my arguments were shut down. Concerned about my home? The company would buy it at market price, pay for a year's rent, and hire a realtor to find a new place. Didn't want to sell? They'd hire a management firm to rent it out. Moving? The company moved entire families overseas all the time. Just get on a plane. Movers would send my stuff to me or put it in storage. Money? The new job came with a huge raise and perks I only dreamed about, including stock options and profit sharing. That night, I talked to my son AJ about moving to Florida. AJ said, Dad, sunny Florida instead of this cold slush? Plus, we get to see Grandma? When do we leave? The next day, my brother surprised me. Darren, we're coming with you, he said. He and his wife, both nurses, could find jobs anywhere. Their kids would benefit from being near Grandma, and they were tired of the cold weather. Right there, we ended up renting a big house near the beach outside Fort Lauderdale. Life was great. My mom loved having her grandkids near. My job with Mac was exciting. The cruise industry was huge but close-knit and centered around Miami. Everyone knew about the pirate incident and wanted to hear the story. Mac, a natural salesman, paraded me around to market our products, from biofuels to communication gear. I was at a cruise port nearly every day or giving presentations at corporate offices. I met more people from more countries than ever before. AJ and his cousins practiced Spanish with their new Latino friends. One day AJ asked me, Dad, why don't these people here speak Spanish the way I learned it? I chuckled. AJ, maybe your teacher from Madrid taught you the formal way, but your friends speak it their whole lives. South Florida had a rich Latin community. I even picked up a few words myself, though my attempts made AJ and his friends laugh. Seeing Zoe every 10 days when the Royal Viking docked was the best part. I was nervous about AJ meeting Zoe, but they hit it off right away. Look, Dad, AJ said, showing me a knot he tied with one hand, taught to him by Zoe. Not bad, AJ, I said. AJ replied, Zoe is awesome, Dad. She speaks 7 languages. Zoe smiled and hugged me. AJ showed off some foreign words he learned. Did I say that right, Zoe? He asked. Perfect, Zoe said with a playful look. What does it mean, AJ? I asked. It means eat dirt and die in Uzbek, he beamed. Zoe laughed. Oh, Darren, it's fine. How many people in South Florida are going to understand him? After getting the right security passes, I took AJ with me to visit Zoe on the ship. Crew members kept AJ entertained while Zoe and I had some private time. AJ explored the entire ship and learned to curse in many languages, which made me a bit worried. But one Monday morning, everything changed with a phone call. Hello, Darren. I recognized Anita's voice instantly. Yes, this is Darren. Who's calling? I teased. Darren, you know this is Anita, she said calmly. It can't be Anita. I asked her not to contact me unless it was about AJ, I responded. I want to see my son, Anita continued. Anita, the court gave me sole custody because you missed too many visitations, I reminded her, switching my phone to the other ear. I understand, Anita. Traveling with Wesley made things really hectic. They say that behind every successful man is a woman. But is there a saying for a married secretary cheating with her boss? Darren, stop being rude. I want to see AJ. He is still my son. Anita, you can't just get AJ excited and not show up. He's your son, not a hair appointment. No need for a lecture, Darren. Leslie has a timeshare near you. We plan to visit next week. Can I take AJ for a long weekend? Leslie has a boat. AJ can go water skiing. Anita, this weekend AJ has plans to go to the Marlins baseball game with my brother's family. I'll be working on a ship. I checked my watch. Yes, I heard you're doing boat engine work. Little fishing charters and stuff, right? So happy for you, Anita said sarcastically. Yeah, something like that. Well, can I have AJ this weekend or not? Darren? Yes, Anita, you can, but don't mess this up. Promise to come and show up. Oh, Darren, Anita started. Anita, I don't want to hurt you, but it's still on my list, so be here Friday, don't be late. I hung up. Of course, Anita didn't show up on Friday. She waited until Thursday night to cancel. She wasn't even sorry. But Darren, you understand, right? Leslie got a last-minute cruise deal. He knows the bartender's brother. We could get upgraded. It's my first trip out of the country. Damn it, Anita, you can't do this to your son. I was very angry. I won't argue with you about this, Darren, Anita replied. I don't argue with fools, Anita. Fools just drag you down and beat you with experience, I said. You get all worked up. Now I have to clean up this mess. Darren, don't be so dramatic. He will understand, Anita said. I'll make it up to him another time. Don't bother. I hung up. I should have been happy. The Royal Viking was in port. I would be on her for 3 days uploading new engine software before she went into dry dock. I was staying with Zoe in her cabin, but Anita's stunt with AJ had put me in a bad mood. Thank God my brother took his godfather duties seriously. He got the extra ticket back so AJ could go to the Marlins baseball game with his cousins. My mood brightened when Zoe hugged and kissed me. She sensed my mood. Everything okay, Darren? She asked, running her fingers through my hair. Did I do something wrong? I explained the situation with Anita and AJ. Zoe was understanding. That's terrible, Darren. We must do something for AJ, Zoe said. But I have some good news. Actually, 2 pieces of good news. I could use some good news, Zoe. Come on, don't tease me. Captain Sven heard you were coming. He wants us to join him tomorrow in the passenger dining room. I even got you a tux. We can get a formal picture together. Zoe was almost beaming. I tried to be excited for Zoe's sake, but wearing a tux was not my idea of fun. Zoe continued. Better yet, Darren, during the 10-day dry dock, I'm not needed, so I can either stay on the ship doing Firewatch or I can join you. No way are you staying on the ship. I picked Zoe up, hugging her. You are staying with me. AJ wants to see the sights. We are going to show him the best of South Florida. Darren, put me down! Zoe squealed as I set her back on the ground. She gave me a look, then said softly, I hoped you would say that. The ship's tailor did a great job. The tux fit perfectly. I looked really good if I do say so myself. Zoe looked stunning in her evening gown, and I enjoyed the night. Captain Sven was a fine host. The food was excellent. Suddenly, an angry male voice shouted from behind me. What the hell is he doing here? The room went silent. Everyone at the table turned. I was shocked to see my ex-wife Anita standing there with a red-faced Wesley. Captain Sven rose. He towered over Wesley. When Captain Sven spoke, his voice was full of authority. "Excuse me, sir. This man, Darren, is an honored guest of the Royal Viking and her crew. Now, if you will be kind, the waiter will show you back to your table. Have a good evening." Anita's face had gone pale white. She seemed more shocked by the sight of me in a tux at the captain's table than I was seeing her. Wesley, however, had had a few drinks, and he wouldn't let it go. Forget that. Listen here, Love Boat wannabe. We get stuck at a crappy table by the kitchen while this guy points at me gets to sit at the main table. No way, sailor boy. Captain Sven stared at Wesley, who started to back down. Sir, I assure you the food is just as good at every table in this dining room. Now, will you let my staff provide you excellent service, or shall I have security remove you? Anita looked like she wanted to disappear. She tugged at Wesley's sleeve. Wesley, Anita said in a low voice, everyone is staring at us. Let's just sit down. Wesley turned on her. Forget you too. I don't need you telling me what to do. You give me a half-hearted excuse for a kiss before dinner, and now I see this crap. I'm going back to that tiny room without a window they call a cabin. With that, he stormed out of the dining room. Anita stood there, stunned, with her hands on her face as everyone stared at her. The room was silent. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist. I cleared my throat loudly. Everyone stared at me as I glanced at my ex-wife. Hello, Anita. It's a surprise seeing you here. I raised my wine glass at her. Maybe we'll bump into each other on the ship. I'm in a suite on the upper deck. Where are you staying? She replied. In the west section. Bunk beds. Anita's face broke into tears and she ran out of the dining room. After a moment, everyone went back to their conversations. I waved over the wine steward. Anyone want more to drink? I planned to sleep in the next morning since my task was done. The ship wouldn't reach the small Haitian island until the afternoon, but Zoe woke me up at 7 a.m. Darren, get dressed quickly. You need to come to the broadcast room. The captain is going to kick your ex-wife and that guy off the ship. I was instantly alert. As I pulled on my clothes, I asked, Zoe, what happened last night? Your wife's guy got really drunk and rude with the casino staff. Then he fought with some guests. It gets worse. During the commotion, a bag of cocaine was found on him. I had to laugh. This was too good to be true. Wesley getting caught with drugs. Not even Christmas could beat this. I got dressed quickly. We soon reached the broadcast room and watched a live feed from the conference center. One camera showed Captain Sven at a table with the staff captain, hotel director, and other staff members. Another camera showed Anita sitting in a corner looking terrible. The third camera tracked Wesley pacing the room. He was in messy clothes and unshaven. A tech handed me a headset. I adjusted the volume and tuned in to catch Wesley yelling, I won't tolerate this kangaroo court. I'm an attorney and a U.S. citizen. I know my rights. You can't keep me against my will. I'll sue all of you. When I'm done, you'll be lucky to command a toy boat. Captain Sven looked bored as he read some papers. He then turned to Wesley. This is a captain's mast hearing, not a court. Yes, as a U.S. citizen, we cannot hold you against your will. In fact, we can't hold anyone against their will. But under Admiralty law, I am the master of this ship. I must ensure the safety of everyone on board. I have seen the footage and read the reports. You attacked my staff and tried to fight other guests. You are a risk to this ship and everyone on it. The only thing I can do is remove you from the Royal Viking. Wesley punched his hand. Fine. Give us our money back and get us a plane off this island. I'll see you in an American court. Captain Sven stared at Wesley. Under maritime laws, like the Safety of Life at Sea and the Shipping Act of 1984, I must only ensure you have enough food, water, and shelter. Anita spoke up. You can't leave us on this island. The captain replied, This is a private resort under a long-term lease from Haiti. We will drop you off outside the gates with your belongings. After that, you are on your own. Wesley became furious. You can't leave us here. The locals would love to mess with us. He pointed to Anita. Do you know what they'd do to her? I thought, wow, Wes, you're unbelievable. Captain Sven did not react to Wesley's outburst. I reject your racist remarks about our hosts, he said. He then held up a clear evidence bag with white powder inside. We have video and statements that show this was in your possession. Our field test confirms it is a banned substance. Captain Sven handed the bag to the security chief. I can report you to Haitian authorities for drug possession. They would handle your transport and accommodation. But I don't think that would be good for you. Do you understand? Wesley looked defeated. Anita started crying. Captain Sven nodded to the security chief. Please escort these two off the Royal Viking with their belongings. I put down my headset and smiled at Zoe. Pulling a pack of gum out of my pocket, I tossed it to one of the techs. Hey, can you make me a DVD copy of this? Between AJ and me, it wasn't clear who was more excited about Zoe visiting. We played tourist every day, visiting the zoo, the beach, and seaquarium. We even went to South Beach. My mom and brother's family loved Zoe, though my sister-in-law made her promise not to teach AJ any foreign curse words. The evenings were even better than the days. I'd never felt so cared for, but soon enough I found Zoe packing her bags one morning. My God, Zoe, is it time already? She paused, folding a blouse. Yes, Darren, the ship leaves tomorrow. How did the time fly by so fast? I said, leaning against the doorway. Zoe gave me a sad smile and patted the bed for me to sit next to her. It was clear something was on her mind. Darren, I've really enjoyed these days with you and AJ, but now I need to talk about us. Zoe took my hand. Darren, I'll say what many women think but don't admit. She took a deep breath. I want to have 2 kids. I know it's risky to have a baby after age 34. So, counting backwards, I need to have my second baby by 33. If there's a year between kids, that means I have my first baby by 32. Another year for getting pregnant with the first one, so I'll be 31. Add 1 more year for the wedding and getting together. So, we get to age 30. I listened closely. Wow, Zoe, you plan your life like a math problem? Zoe gave a small smile. I am now 28, Darren. I won't lie to you like others might. I see you as a great father for our kids and a good husband for me. But I won't trick you into anything. I could tell Zoe was stressed since her English got choppy when she was nervous. As I started to speak, Zoe held up her hand. Darren, I go back to the Royal Viking tomorrow. The ship is leaving the U.S. to go to the far Caribbean. I won't see you for the last 3 months of my contract. Please take your time to decide. If you don't want me, I understand and we will stay friends. But I need to look ahead in my life. We will talk no more about this. Zoe closed the suitcase and left the room. It had been almost 3 months since I last saw her. I missed her a lot. Now I was on a 757 airplane flying east over the Caribbean to meet Zoe on the Royal Viking. Mac, needing a part, had asked if anyone could fly out. There was 1 flight a week to Port Engler. I left straight from work, not even packing a bag, promising the cab driver all the cash in my wallet if he got me to the airport on time. I was sitting by a window near the back of the plane. The plane had about 150 passengers, so I was lucky to have an empty seat next to me and a young girl in the aisle seat. We were halfway into our 6-hour flight when the young girl tapped me on the shoulder. Hey, mister, how'd you get the internet? She was looking at my laptop. Well, honey, this is a test plane. Its wings have special antennas that pick up internet from satellites, not cell towers like most planes. How come you have it and nobody else does? My company is testing this with the airline. I have a passcode on this memory stick to use the system. Wow, mister, I wish I had internet. I'm so bored. I pulled the USB stick out of my laptop. My name is Darren. We'll make a deal. You tell me your name and where you're going, and I'll let you use the internet for the rest of the flight. Deal, said the girl. My name is Katie with an E. I'm 16 years old, and I'm going to meet my family on a cruise ship called the Royal Viking. Well, Katie with an E, it is nice to meet you. Is your family already on board? I motioned for her to give me her laptop. Katie was giggling at me. You can just call me Katie. But yeah, everyone is already on board. My dad is some big-shot political guy. They're filming a reality TV show about him. I didn't want to come, but Mom made me. She says we have to support Dad. It's so stupid. I handed Katie back her laptop. Your mom is right. Families should stick together. I think it's great you are helping out your dad. Katie was already logging into her Facebook page. Sure, whatever. We had about an hour left in the flight. I was staring at the GPS display on the seatback screen when I got an idea. Katie, let me borrow your laptop. I want to show you something. After Katie handed me her laptop, I logged onto the Royal Viking website. I turned the screen to face Katie. See that? I pointed to the laptop display of a real-time GPS coordinate of the Royal Viking. If the plane's GPS is accurate, we should be passing over the Royal Viking in a few minutes. Maybe we will see the ship out the window if there are no clouds." "Cool," Katie said. I nodded. If we had a parachute, we could jump right on top of the ship. "You're right," Katie laughed. Suddenly, a huge bang shook the aircraft. The plane started to shake badly. "Darren, what's going on?" Katie grabbed my hand. "I'm scared." "Me too," I thought. I was so terrified. My back was completely tense. But I tried to calm the young girl. "Stay calm. I'm not sure what's happening, Katie. They should make an announcement soon." The captain came over the speaker, and it was not to wish us happy birthday. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we have a major malfunction. Please listen to your flight attendants. We may need to make an emergency landing in the water. If that happens, follow the flight attendants' instructions. I have sent out a distress signal, and the Coast Guard is on its way." The flight attendants looked pale as they went down the aisle, trying to calm passengers. "What does that mean, Darren?" Katie's face was very pale. "Katie, honey, the plane may need to land in the water. It looks like we are going for a little swim. I don't want to die." Katie started to cry. I took her chin in my hand. "Look at me, Katie. You are going to be fine. You are with me, and I'm too tough to die." This made Katie smile a little through her tears. It also gave me an idea as the plane started to shake more, losing altitude. I swiped my credit card into the phone on the seatback while looking for a phone number on my BlackBerry. I had to go through greetings and menus, pressing a series of buttons, as an automated voice told me the cost of the call, making sure I acknowledged the charges. I didn't care. They could bill me later, but if I died in the crash, they could forget about getting any money from me. I punched in a series of numbers. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard a familiar voice. "Hello, this is Captain Sven." "Captain Sven, it's Darren." Captain Sven quickly interrupted. "Darren, it's great to hear from you. Max said you'd be joining us at the port. Did you bring any more aquavit?" I could see the ocean getting closer through the window. "Captain Sven, listen, I don't have much time. I'm on a plane about to crash a few miles from your location." I quickly gave him the last coordinates I saw on the plane's GPS. Captain Sven immediately switched to a serious tone. I heard him shout something to his crew before returning to the call. "Stay safe, Darren. We're coming faster than a storm." Then the line went dead. I cursed under my breath and put the headset back. The flight attendants were still guiding everyone when the intercom blared, "Brace for impact." When I was 16, my brother and I had a bad car accident, putting us in bed for a week. That crash felt like a minor bump compared to when we hit the water. The impact knocked the breath out of me and made me see stars. My nose hurt badly, and there was blood on my shirt. "Damn it," I muttered, realizing I broke my nose. Katie looked unhurt but was shaking. "What do we do, Darren?" she asked, panicking. I took a deep breath. The door behind us had blown open, and through the window I saw the emergency slide pop out. I grabbed a seat cushion and a yellow life vest, helping Katie into it. Passengers were already jumping out of the door. I put on my life vest and pushed Katie forward. She turned to me, red-faced. "I'm sorry, Darren. I'm so scared. I wet myself." I encouraged her to keep moving. "Don't worry, Katie. We'll all be wet in a few minutes. No one will notice. We might all need a change of clothes after this." The crew was doing a great job getting everyone off. I helped some older passengers, then saw no one was behind me. The water was almost knee-deep inside the plane. I grabbed bottles of water from the galley and threw them out the door. A frantic flight attendant asked, "What are you doing, sir?" I kept tossing the water bottles. "It's hot outside. We can't drink seawater," I said, continuing to throw juice and milk outside. A man with pilot wings waved us out. "Get out! Everyone else is evacuated." He jumped, and I motioned to the attendant. "Ladies first." Then I jumped out after her. An old pilot saying goes, "Any landing you can walk away from is a good one." I wondered if the same applied when you swim away. One of the plane's wings was torn off, but the main body was intact. The pilot had done a great job. I saw the 6 inflatable slides. 5 were working as rafts, though 2 were deflating. About 150 of us were floating, most on slides and rafts, the rest with life jackets and seats as floaters. I swam over to Katie, who looked terrified. "Hi, Katie," I said, trying to be brave. "Boy, are we lucky. Some people pay a lot for deep-sea tours." Katie gave a weak smile. She was holding onto the side of a slide. I helped her into the raft with other passengers. The sea around us was filled with seat cushions and other debris. The water was calm, but the current was pulling us apart into small groups. The crew was trying to keep everyone together. About an hour later, I swam around, picking up floating bottles and cans, handing them to passengers while trying to keep spirits up with jokes. When I paddled to Katie's raft, I tossed cans of soda and juice onto her lap with a smile. "Miss Katie, here's your order. That'll be $6.85. Tip not included." Katie gave me a worried look. "Darren, are we stuck out here? Are we going to die?" "Katie, I told you you're with me and I am too stubborn to die. The captain sent the distress signal, so the Coast Guard should be here soon. My bet is on the Royal Viking." Katie scanned the ocean, still worried. "What about sharks?" I looked around. Most people had taken off their shirts to shield themselves from the sun. "Katie, don't worry. Sharks don't come this far. They prefer colder water. Since 1997, there have been less than 6 shark attacks in the Caribbean. Generally, sharks don't attack people. This isn't Jaws." Suddenly, I heard a noise. I looked up at the clear sky, realizing it wasn't thunder. Katie shaded her eyes and spotted something. "It's a boat! It's a boat!" Katie screamed, jumping on the slide raft, then fell into the water with a splash. Everyone pointed and shouted. In the distance, a big white shape appeared on the horizon. "That's no boat!" I yelled. "That's a ship! That's the Royal Viking!" It was the prettiest sight I'd ever seen. As it came closer, Captain Sven blew the ship's horn and shot flares. It was quite a show. Everyone cheered and waved their arms as the Royal Viking came nearer. When it was about 200 yards away, it slowed down and turned to show us its side. Katie was worried. "Why are they stopping? They're not going to leave us, are they?" I patted her shoulder. "Calm down, Katie. Just watch." We watched as the Royal Viking moved with perfect precision. Captain Sven came from a long line of Nordic sailors. He was very serious about his job. I had seen him oversee many drills, making sure his crew knew their jobs well. Soon, orange-topped boats with crew members in life jackets were lowered into the water. They quickly headed our way in formation. I saw my boss, Mac, in the lead boat, standing next to a tall, white-haired man and a guy with a video camera. The ship's decks were full of people waving and cheering. The flashes from cameras were everywhere. The rescue boats formed a circle around us and began picking up the wet and thankful plane passengers and crew. I started to enjoy the warm water. I helped others get onto the rescue boats. Soon, almost everyone was out of the water. I swam to the lead boat and saw Mac looking down at me with a grin. "Darren, you silly worm, get in the boat!" I reached for his hand, but then saw the white-haired man shouting and waving. I turned and saw Katie had drifted about 20 yards away. I let go of the ladder and swam towards Katie. "Darren, you fool, get back here!" Mac shouted. I reached Katie, who was floating on her back. She smiled and said, "Oh, Mr. Dew, I want to stay and play in the water some more." For a girl who was scared an hour ago, her mood had surely changed. Typical teenager. I laughed. "Come on, they're waiting for you." Then I saw something behind her. My blood ran cold. 2 shark fins were heading our way. I tried to stay calm, but my heart raced. I took off Katie's life jacket. "Katie, quick, get on my back and hold tight." "But why?" she asked. Then she saw the fins. Katie wasn't the only one who noticed. Everyone in the rescue boats was pointing and shouting. "Swim, you fool! Hurry!" Mac yelled. I needed no encouragement. I swam faster than ever. Something large bumped into my stomach. I almost lost control. I was just a few yards away from the boat. Everyone was shouting encouragement. I saw the white-haired man screaming Katie's name. My hand touched the side of the boat. Mac hung down from the ladder and pulled Katie off my back and into the boat. As Mac grabbed my hand, something bit my leg and pulled me under. I struggled for air and swallowed seawater. The water around my leg turned red. A shark had taken a bite out of my calf. I thought of the Discovery Channel. Then the pain hit me. A rush of adrenaline surged through me. No way was I going to leave my son fatherless. I kicked hard, the pain fighting with the adrenaline. I broke the surface and grabbed the rope ladder. I had just grabbed the second rung when something huge bit my back and neck. It felt like 100 knives stabbing me. The last thing I saw was Mac pointing a flare gun at me. "You're not coming aboard my boat, you sorry maggot," he said. He pulled the trigger and everything went white. I had a mix of memories. I felt Mac slapping my face. "Darren, stay with me, lad. You have to stay with me." There were people around me. I was lying on my side on something rough. We were bobbing up and down, side to side. I felt seasick. "Your shooting sucks, Mac. You missed me, Mr. Big-Time Special Boat Service guy," I mumbled. Mac grinned. "That's it, Darren. Keep talking. I didn't miss you, fool. I blew that shark off your back." Pain hit me and I closed my eyes. I heard Katie's tearful voice, faint and distant. "Is he going to die? You can't let him die." I tried to speak, but my voice came out very soft. Mac moved closer to me. "Darren, what did you say?" "I am too ugly to die," I shouted, trying to ignore the pain. I heard laughter from the crowd of people before everything turned black. A loud beeping sound on my left woke me up. The noise was annoying and I felt an itchy spot on my left leg. I wanted to move my arm but found it connected to a bunch of tubes. I focused and saw that I was in a hospital. Zoe was sleeping in a chair next to me. "Oh, I see our special guest is finally awake," a nurse said as she walked in carrying a bag. She opened the curtains, filling the room with light. "How did I get here?" I asked in a weak voice. The nurse made some adjustments to a monitor before answering. "When a high-ranking member of Congress wants something done, people listen." Zoe jumped out of her chair when she heard my voice. She hugged me and buried her head in my neck. "Darren, I was so worried. We almost lost you a couple of times. You lost so much blood. The shark bites on your back got infected. You didn't respond well to antibiotics. They put you in a coma to help you heal. You've been out for almost 3 weeks. If you hadn't made it, I would have just died." "Yes, Zoe, me too," I joked, feeling her tears on my neck. I tried to hug Zoe back, but the tubes in my arms were in the way. Still, I felt pretty good considering the situation. I was on a lot of medicine. "Zoe, where am I? How did I get here?" "Darren, this is one of the best hospitals in Washington, D.C. The girl you saved from Katie, her dad is a big deal in the government. He got the Navy to send a special plane for you," she explained. Zoe took my hand. "They weren't going to let me on the flight. I told them they'd need the whole army to keep me away from you." She went back to her chair and pulled out her laptop. She pressed a few keys and put the computer on my lap, turning the screen toward me. "Darren, you know you're a star now." I watched as the story played out on Zoe's laptop. A reality TV show crew following the congressman had recorded everything. The episode was called Too Ugly to Die. They made me look like a mix of Rambo, John Wayne, and Superman. According to the show, I was responsible for the plane's safe landing, rescuing all the passengers, saving the little girl, and even fighting off giant sharks. They even added a colorful version of my pirate adventure. All that was missing was a knife between my teeth, a bottle of rum, and an eye patch. When the screen went blank, I turned to Zoe. "What? No footage of me saving kittens from trees?" Zoe laughed and pressed a few more keys, turning the screen back to me. The laptop showed clips of people, college kids, high school students, senior citizens, even babies in strollers, wearing T-shirts with a shark and an old-fashioned pirate character with a red circle and line through them. Bold letters above and below said, "Too ugly to die." I just shook my head, but Zoe clapped her hands. "Darren, it's gone viral. A man came to ask if he could make T-shirts, mugs, stickers, and other stuff. I told him yes. You don't mind, right?" I just waved my hand. "Zoe, if you can make some money off this silliness, go ahead." Zoe hugged and kissed me. We didn't make a lot of money off the Too Ugly to Die stuff. It was easy for people to copy, but the money helped us buy a big house. My brother and I pooled our money together. He and his wife sold their old house up north. The realtor found 2 large houses next to each other. They had been fixed up with new floors, air conditioning, appliances, and even solar panels. They were worth almost $1 million each before, but now they were owned by the bank. They couldn't complete the paperwork fast enough when we offered them a quarter of that amount in cash. My rehab was tough, made harder by all the medical people around. My brother, his wife, and Zoe never let me skip my exercises. Yes, Zoe was living with us now. A congressman we helped got Zoe's citizenship added to a bill. We even got to go to the bill signing. He made some calls, and Zoe got her medical school papers from her old country. It's good to have friends in high places. Zoe had one quirky habit. She loved to clean the house. She missed doing basic chores after spending years on ships or in hotels with room service. Now, some say I'm not too bright, but I'm no fool. If Zoe liked doing dishes, vacuuming, laundry, and dusting, who was I to stop her? In fact, I encouraged it. Today, I had a rare day off. No ships were in port, Mac was at a conference, and there was nothing at the office that needed my attention. Zoe was wearing what I called her cleaning outfit. She had on old jeans, sandals, and a scarf tied on her head. An apron full of cleaning sprays and wipes hung around her waist. She always had a dust mop in her hand. When I heard the doorbell, I couldn't believe my eyes when Zoe walked in with my ex-wife, Anita. "Darren, someone is here to see you," Zoe started. Anita cut her off, stepping in front. "It's okay, dear. I don't need a housekeeper to introduce me to my husband of over 10 years. Anita walked toward me with her arms wide open, expecting a hug. I jumped from my chair and almost tripped over the coffee table trying to get away. It took me a second to understand. "Anita, I'm your ex-husband, remember? What are you doing here?" The smile dropped from Anita's face as she sat on the couch. "Darren, it's been—" She paused to pull herself together. "Can you have your housekeeper get me a cup of coffee, please? I've been on a bus for 3 days. It was rough." I was about to tell her Zoe wasn't a housekeeper when Zoe answered. "Of course, madam. Would you like cream and sugar? Maybe a pastry?" I noticed Zoe suddenly spoke with a heavy accent, but Anita didn't seem to care. "Oh, yes, dear, that would be nice. Cream and sugar, please." I looked at Anita. She looked awful. She seemed older than her age, like life had been hard on her. Her clothes hung loosely. She had lost a lot of weight. Anita always cared about how she looked. Now she wore no makeup, and her once shiny blonde hair was dull with streaks of gray. Zoe returned with a tray holding coffee and small cookies. Anita ate them quickly and then turned to Zoe. "Thank you so much, dear. Can we have a few minutes alone? I'm sure you have things to do." I started to object, but Zoe just said, "You're welcome, madam. Excuse me." Her accent was so thick I could barely understand her. I saw a playful glint in her eye. Zoe left the room but stayed near the kitchen door close enough to hear us. Anita bit into a cookie, brushing crumbs off her knee before speaking. "West and I aren't together anymore, Darren." I couldn't help myself. "I thought his name was Wesley. Didn't you insist everyone call him Wesley? What happened? Did you cheat on him to find someone with more travel miles?" Anita looked down at her worn shoes. "I guess I deserve that. But no, he left me for a younger woman. I never saw it coming. Her husband told me. He showed up with pictures and everything." "Serves you right," I said, not hiding my smile. "Oh, don't look so pleased, Darren. I get the irony." Anita sipped her coffee. "Anita, you married a cheater, expected to travel the world and live happily ever after. What could possibly go wrong?" I finally sat back in my chair. "It's called karma." "Please, Darren, stop smiling like that. It's not like you to gloat. That young woman doesn't know what she's in for. The housing crash left us broke. She and West will end up living in that trailer park dodging bill collectors." Anita looked around the room at photos of me in different countries. Zoe had really turned our house into a home. "Darren, since when did you start traveling so much?" Anita focused on one picture and got up to look closer. "Darren, is that you with the President of the United States?" "Yeah, he knows me. That picture was taken in the White House Rose Garden after a bill signing. He's taller than he looks on TV. He even signed some souvenirs. We got a tour of Air Force One," I said, trying to sound casual. Anita's mouth fell open. "You're joking. Those pictures must be fake." "I'm not joking. Don't call me Shirley," I said. Anita was silent, still staring at the picture. "Damn, didn't anyone see the airplane movies? Anita, the pictures are real. They were taken by the official White House photographer. See the emblem in the corner. It was after I spent the night in the Lincoln bedroom. Fun fact, Lincoln never slept there. It was his office." Anita kept staring. "Why are you and the president holding up a t-shirt that reads, 'Too ugly to die'?" "Long story. You might not be interested," I said. "My God, Darren, why didn't you do this when we were together?" she asked. I shrugged. "Why didn't I do that with you? Maybe I would have, but you left to be with your boss before we had a chance. You didn't stick around to find out." She stood up straight and looked me in the eye. "Well, that's going to change, Darren. Let's forget the past. We've both changed, but we're still connected." "Connected? You and me? Right, Anita. If you shovel that nonsense any deeper, I'll need boots, I said. Darren, I'm serious and truly sorry for what I did, but I'm not holding a grudge over the money you took, she began. I cut her off. If I were you, I'd choose my words more carefully when talking about cheating. You cheated on me during our marriage, then ignored your son, and now you expect money. What is that, a bounty after a mutiny? Darren, I can't say sorry enough times, she murmured. I'm here to ask for another chance. I want us to be a family again, like we once were. Anita looked at me and said, Please, Darren, let me speak first. I know my recent actions have been hard for you, but you can trust me now. If you just give me the chance to prove it. We were good together before. We've been through so much together. It will take a lot of work, but we are both wiser now. I know we can do it, she added. I stood up from my chair. The thing is, Anita, knowing a tomato is a fruit is knowledge, but not putting it in a fruit salad is wisdom. Why should I go through all that trouble to be with you? I asked. If West hadn't messed around on you, would you still be here trying to get back with me? Anita folded her hands in her lap before answering. Wes and I were over long before that other guy showed up. I suspected West was just cheating on me too much. I couldn't help laughing. Cheating too much, Anita? Is there an acceptable amount? You and Wes work out a formula for that? Anita looked sad. No, Darren, it wasn't like that. I just thought Wes would stop cheating eventually, and the travel would bring us closer. It was a big mistake. I knew I made a huge mistake the day I walked out the door. When you confronted me about those hotel locks, you didn't sound like it. You said you were planning to leave me and AJ. Darren, I was a naive idiot who believed all the smooth lines West told me, she said, looking at her hands. He promised we'd travel the world, no worries, just an adventure. Like a fool, I believed every word. I let out a snort. Oh my, you were Little Red Riding Hood, tricked by the big bad wolf. Didn't you also believe more than just his words? There was a moment of silence. Then I softened. Why didn't you come back then, Anita? I loved you so much. You were my whole world. I was so hurt. But we could have worked it out. Anita sighed. My God, so many times I wanted to come back. I practiced this speech 1,000 times, even on the bus ride here. Now it just feels so empty. I can't apologize enough. I was a fool, plain and simple. There was no excuse for my actions. I knew you liked staying at home, not very adventurous, a solid, steady guy. West was a man of action. He wasn't. What? Anita, what wasn't West? Damn it, Darren, I don't know. I guess he wasn't afraid to make things happen. He was so different from you. Anita fidgeted in her seat. Anita, if this is your idea of an apology, you are really bad at it. Darren, I promised I would never lie to you again, and I won't now. My actions and thoughts were just wrong, wrong, wrong. What I did with him to you and AJ was incredibly stupid, both then and now. At that time, I thought it was my only chance to see the world without being tied down. It was just one big mess I created, and I realized it too late. I was too proud to come crawling back. Deep down, I thought you'd still be waiting for me, keeping the home fires burning. It's awful to admit, but you were probably my fallback plan all along. The man I thought I'd return to one day. Your love for me, that stable anchor, would be strong enough to accept me even after everything. Anita looked up at me, tears starting to form in her eyes. I wasn't completely wrong, though. Darren, you're still here, all alone in this big empty house. I've come back to do whatever you want or ask. I mean anything if it will bring us back together. Can't we at least try? That ship has sailed, Anita. I got to give Anita credit. She didn't give up. Please, Darren, can't you give me the chance? I know about the dates your brother tried to set you up on. They were a total disaster, weren't they? She took my silence for a yes. Look around, Darren. You might think I'm damaged goods, but I'm still the best person for you and AJ. Do you really think you can find someone who will love you and AJ as much as I do? I've had my reality check. If you face it, you know, for better or worse, I am the best bet you have. Damaged goods. Best bet I have, right? You think I can't replace you? How wrong can you be? I motioned toward the kitchen for Zoe to come forward. Anita, I don't need to bet. I have a sure thing for AJ and me right here. Zoe stepped up, taking my hand. Now it was Anita's turn to be stunned. She looked shocked. You are dating a maid? You would choose her over me? No, Anita, I'm not dating the maid. I'm engaged to her. She's a doctor who speaks 7 languages. But Darren, I was your wife for 12 years, the mother of your child. Anita stood up from the couch. My God, Darren, she looks like she just got off the boat. She barely speaks English. Zoe had a mischievous sparkle in her eye as she reached out, shaking Anita's hand, then spoke in almost perfect English with just a hint of an upper-class British accent and steel in her voice. Hello, Anita. In fact, I did just get off the boat. You remember the Royal Viking, don't you? Anita's eyes widened as Zoe continued. Welcome to our home. AJ is a fine boy. I enjoy spending time with him and Darren. Anita was speechless. Then she saw my favorite picture hanging prominently over the mantel. It was of Zoe and me on the Royal Viking, her in a stunning evening gown with me in my tux. Anita put the pieces together. You? She sputtered at Zoe, the woman from the cruise ship, the one sitting next to Darren at the captain's table that night. Guilty as charged, Zoe said with a smile. Do you want to stay and talk to AJ, or do you need to leave? Speak of the devil. And he appeared. Just then, AJ came running into the house, slamming the door. Despite us telling him many times, AJ was holding his skateboard and wearing an oversized, ugly t-shirt. He had earphones hanging around his neck. We heard him talking loudly before he even reached the room. Hey, Dad! Whose beat-up old suitcases are by the door? AJ walked into the room and stopped when he saw Anita. He cursed in what I think was Finnish or Norwegian. Zoe broke the silence. AJ, your mother traveled 3 days by bus to see you. AJ replied with the tone only teenagers have. The bus? What happened, Mom? Did your broom break down? Watch it, Zoe and I said together. AJ looked around the room. Where's your old husband? You know that guy? Anita was stunned by everything and now AJ's attitude. Son, that man, Wesley, and I are no longer together, she said. AJ thought about that for a second. You cheated on him too? Is that why you came to Florida? Going to cruise the senior centers trying to find another husband? Should be lots of candidates for you at the retirement home. Stop that right now, I ordered, but I was having a hard time keeping a straight face. AJ kept going. Mom, my friend's great-grandfather still lives with them. You might like Papa Jose. He is just your type. I mean, he's really, really old, like almost 100. I walked toward AJ, but he kept talking. You know, Mom, Papa Jose uses a wheelchair, but with all the new pills, plus your help, you might be able to make it work. Do you want me to set you two up? Anita fell onto the couch, crying. I grabbed AJ's arm and pulled him into the kitchen. AJ, what has gotten into you? You can't talk to your mother like that. AJ answered, defiant. Come on, Dad. We both know Mom betrayed this family. She left us faster than a rapper running from a drug test. Now, AJ, that is not true at all. AJ said a German curse word before continuing in English. Dad, you can't tell me that Mom didn't jump into bed with the first good offer and leave us hanging. He saw the look on my face. It's okay, Dad. I heard Uncle talking to Annie about it one night. I don't want anything to do with that traitor. I'm not giving her another chance to betray us. I took a deep breath before speaking. AJ, listen, I'm not defending what your mom did, but let's try to consider her whole time with you and be civil. Did I beat her up? I wanted to, but I didn't. Right. Think back to when you were sick in the hospital as a kid. Who was always by your side? Mom. Who took care of you at home? Mom. Who taught you when you couldn't go to school anymore? Mom. After all those years of what she has done for you, don't you have a little room in your heart for her? I could see AJ was weakening but still angry. But Dad, how do we know she won't leave us again? I trust Mom as much as a drug addict around a stash. AJ, you're old enough to know that none of us are perfect. You might get along better with your mom now that you can see her as a person. Remember what the chaplain on the Royal Viking you like so much said, hate the sin, love the sinner? Dad, just because Mom goes to church doesn't make her a good person. If I stand in a garage, it doesn't make me a car. AJ's words said one thing, but his body showed he was conflicted. Son, just for me. Go into that room, talk with your mother, listen with an open mind to what she has to say. Can you do that? It's all I ask. AJ shuffled his feet a few times. Okay, Dad, I'll do it, but only because you asked me. As AJ spent time with Anita alone, Zoe cornered me in the kitchen. Darren, your old wife is like a broken paddle, useless. I peeked around the corner. Anita was still talking with AJ. I turned back to Zoe. What did Anita say? Darren, your old wife's company fell apart during a housing problem. Everyone lost a lot of money. Anita foolishly let her old husband do the divorce because neither had money for lawyers, according to the divorce laws here. Both parties shared debt as well as assets when they split. I shrugged. It will be a hassle, but not such a big deal. She can declare personal bankruptcy like many people are doing now. Zoe shook her head. I don't think so, Darren. It looks like Anita and her old husband signed for many strange mortgages that can't be erased by the courts. Also, the taxman says she owes a lot of money to them. I winced. If you owe the IRS in America, you're in trouble. I know that's one of the few debts you can't escape, Darren. There is a bigger problem for Anita now. She has no money, nowhere to stay. Anita didn't have much of a plan beyond trying to get back together with you. I looked around the kitchen. Well, the house is big. We do have extra rooms. Zoe started swearing in another language while I tried not to laugh. I finally let the smile spread across my face, raising my hands in a gesture of surrender. Zoe, relax. I'm just kidding. We will find a hotel or somewhere for Anita to stay. We can lend her some cash. Zoe calmed down as she pulled out her cell phone. I know just the place, Darren. A lot of the crew stays there between jobs. It has long-term furnished rentals with kitchens. Plus, it's near the bus stop. The rates are very reasonable. Best of all, it is not here. Anita couldn't find a job, especially not one that she could live on, with the IRS set to take a big chunk of her pay. Zoe used her connections to get Anita a job on a ship. The ship was old and did short trips to the Bahamas, mainly booze cruises. Cleaning cabins was tough. The hours were long and the pay was low, but it was a steady job with a place to stay and meals, plus tips. The contract was for 10 months of work and 2 months off. Though Zoe might have preferred Anita working far away, maybe even in the cold of Antarctica over time, my son and his mother found a way to get along. I never saw them share the close bond that Zoe and AJ had. But still, everyone got along well enough. After her third contract, Anita got promoted to a low-level management role on her ship. My wife is now one of the top anesthesiologists at the hospital. AJ is thinking about applying to the Naval Academy, and having a congressman to help with the appointment is a bonus. My 2 new sons are lively and speak in several languages. They look just like their mother, thank goodness. Then again, sometimes it's good to not be too handsome. Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.